What? Butterflight and an AcroBee? I'm going to show you how. With Butterflight being all the rage lately, probably because it flies so darn good, there's no way that I wasn't going to try it in my micros. And I'll tell you what, it is totally worth the effort. Let's get into the good stuff, and I'm going to show you how to make it happen. Our absolute first step is we're going to want to connect your AcroBee to your computer and launch Betaflight. Once Betaflight's open and we've connected, what we need to do is go into the CLI and type in diff and enter. And essentially, this is going to allow us to save the configuration in the AcroBee in case you ever need to go back and refer to this again. If you want to go back to Betaflight, and this can also be handy with your Butterflight installation because a lot of this is going to stay consistent. So now that we have our diff up and all our settings are here, I'm going to click Save to File. And I already have a location where I saved my Betaflight dumps to. And as long as your aircraft has a name, the configurator will automatically populate the name for the aircraft, and it's going to generate a unique ID based on the date, and you can just simply hit save, and that's all there is to it. Since I've already gone and done this for this craft, I'm not going to hit save again. I'm going to hit cancel, but once again right here, make sure you pick a location where you know your dumps are going to be located, and just hit save. And that's it. We are done with Betaflight. Now I'm going to disconnect. Since our backup is complete, we are now ready to take a look as to where we're going to get Butterflight and the Butterflight configurator. And I'm going to have links to all this stuff in the description. So if you guys are looking for any of this, hopefully this will be a quick, easy, and convenient place to find all these links, because some of these places can be quite useful, and some of them you're definitely going to need to visit if you want to move forward with this installation. Now, the first page I have up here is the Butterflight main GitHub page, and the reason I have this up is because there's a lot of details here about Butterflight itself. There's a feature list, there is installation and documentation. If you're looking for anything, if you have any questions, there's also a support and developers channel. And I would recommend also joining the Facebook group. The devs do hang out there, and they are very responsive if anybody has a question on Butterflight. Hopefully in this scenario, this installation is fairly simple, so you won't really have the need for any additional help. But if you do, check out the Facebook group. They're pretty helpful there. Anyway, this is the main GitHub page. There's lots of links and useful information here. When you're ready to download and install your Butterflight configurator, you're going to want to go to this web page here, which is butterflight.co. Just simply scroll down and you're going to see this link here that says "Gimme that butter." And once you click on that, it's going to take you back to the GitHub page, which is going to allow you to download the latest version of the configurator. Most of you are probably running Windows, and there are two different versions. There is a 32-bit version and also a 64-bit version, depending on what Windows installation you're currently running. If you're not sure, you can always play it safe and download the 32-bit version, but I'm willing to bet that the vast majority of people that are going to be doing this install are definitely going to be using the 64-bit version. There are also a couple of other versions of the Butterflight configurator for different operating systems, for Linux and Macs, and also AMD 64s. Actually, I don't even know what that AMD 64.deb is. That's something I've never tried before. Okay, great. Anyway, just click on the link for the appropriate configurator. Your browser will initiate the download. Because I already have it installed, I'm not going to go through all this. Save your file, install it just like you would install any other Windows application. I'm willing to bet that most of you aren't going to need the help actually installing the configurator. I mean, let's face it, if you got Betaflight in the computer in the first place, you're definitely going to be able to get Butterflight in there. Once you've downloaded and installed the configurator, we're going to need to open it up. And now we're ready to install the butter, right? So let's get this smooth, buttery goodness into our AcroBee for the first time. More than likely, to get the install to work, you're going to have to push and hold the button on the bottom side of the BeeBrain while plugging your AcroBee into the USB port of your computer. I prefer to plug it into the aircraft first because I have a couple of front-facing USB ports on my computer, and this makes it easy for me to be able to plug it in this way. It can be kind of tricky, and it might take you a couple of tries to actually get the aircraft into DFU mode, but it kind of has to happen, and in most cases, in order to flash Butterflight, you're definitely going to have to push this button down. I recommend and prefer to use plastic tools for this because when you do plug the aircraft into USB, there's going to be current going through the board, and if you slip using a metal screwdriver, you could short something on the board and damage it, and we definitely don't want to do that while we're installing firmware. Kind of how I like to do it is I'm going to push and hold that button down. I'm plugging in my USB. And boom, first try, we're into DFU mode. Let's shoot over to the firmware flasher page. And now we're going to pick our target. So what flight controller are we using? Well, here's a little cheater. If you open, here, let me find it real quick. I'll bring it up so I can show you guys. Okay, so here is my differential dump that I just took from the AcroBee. Before I started recording, just to make sure I had my backup on hand. Right on the very top, you're going to see the target that you're looking for your particular board. Now, there are two different versions of the BeeBrain V2 flight controller, and one of them is the FR Sky version, and the other one is the Spectrum version. And this is what we need to pay attention to, is which board do you have? Let me just get this out of the way again, and I'm going to show you right here as we select our target. So one of them is BeeBrain V2F, and the other is BeeBrain V2D. The D is the Spectrum version, and the F is the FR Sky version. So because I'm flying FR Sky, I'm going to click that particular version. I am now going to select the latest version of Butterflight. More than likely, you're not going to have to select no reboot sequences. I always do full chip erase, and out of all the boards I flashed, I've kind of just always left enabled manual baud rate, and I've never had an issue with that. Once we have all this set up and configured, we can now shoot down to the bottom right of the Butterflight configurator. We're going to click Load Firmware Online. The program is going to download our firmware. And now we can click Flash Firmware. It's going to erase, and all this should happen relatively quickly. And now we're flashing the board with Butterflight. This should only take a moment. If it takes longer than a minute or two, something probably isn't right. And I'm going to actually show you mine here in real time so you can see how quickly this should actually execute. Now that programming is successful, I recommend rebooting your flight controller by unplugging it from the USB port on your computer and then plugging it back in. Now that I've plugged it back in and the flight controller has booted back up, I have my COM port available, and I'm going to click on Connect. Okay, we've successfully flashed and we're successfully connected to the flight controller. What's nice about the BeeBrain binaries is a lot of the default configuration is already done for you because that firmware is very specific to this board. And this is quick and simple. We're going to be in and out of here real quick. Let's just go through our major categories on the left-hand side of the configurator, and we'll go through the setup. On the ports tab, there's absolutely nothing to configure here. We already have serial RX selected, and the telemetry output is already set to FR Sky. Under configuration, we are going to have to make a couple of changes here. Your default ESC motor features is totally fine. You can leave that. Under system configuration, I'm going to disable my accelerometer so I can run an 8K PID loop. This is really only if you're going to be flying in acro mode. If you do want to fly in self-leveling modes, you're probably going to have to reduce your PID loop to about an 8K, 4K loop. That's fine. It'll still fly great, but really I want to get the maximum performance out of this. And because I use all my micro aircraft as a tool for training, I like to set up all my rates the same. And because, well, I fly the big boys in acro only, I'm going to fly this in acro only. I'm going to go back and select 8K and disable my accelerometer. You can change the name under personalization if you see fit. On our receiver, we don't need to make a change to this, already configured. And now we're actually going to start getting into some of the features that we're going to need to set specifically to be able to run Butterflight. In order to preserve processor, I'm going to disable telemetry. I'm going to disable the transponder. And now we need to turn on a couple of these guys in order to optimize things for Butterflight. I'm going to turn air mode on as a feature. I'm going to turn on anti-gravity. And I'm also going to turn on the dynamic filter. And that's it. Everything's configured in here. Because this aircraft does not have a beeper, we don't need to worry about any of this. Right now, I can save and reboot. Now that the flight controller has rebooted, I'm going to reconnect. We are done with configuration. And while we're here, let's take a look. You'll see that my CPU load is currently at 31%. This is a comfortable area to be in. You really do not want to be above 35% with this, or you could run into issues with your flight controller locking up, poor performance, and just a whole bunch of other things. You always want to pay attention to this while you're doing a configuration for the first time. Under power and battery, make sure that your current meter source is set to none. Again, this is going to help preserve some of your processor, and you're going to pick up maybe about 1 or 2 percentage points here just by simply having this set to none as opposed to anything else. If you do have it set to any of the other variable sensors here, it's going to be looking for that sensor, and it's going to take processor power to do that. So again, just confirm you're set to none. If you do have expert mode enabled and your failsafe tab is available, typically all the defaults are fine. I really don't recommend messing with this unless you know what you're doing. Now we can go into our PID tuning, and this is where we're going to do a little bit more of the configuration for the buttery goodness. We're going to shoot over to the filter settings. We're going to make sure that the D-term low-pass filter is set to PT1. And we're going to also want to make sure that all 3 of the notch filters are disabled. So you're going to disable gyro notch filter 1 and 2, and also the D-term notch filter as well. We're done here. We can hit save. And we are almost done with the setup for Butterflight. We're going to shoot over to the CLI, and we're going to need to put a couple of commands into the CLI in order to enable the Kalman filter itself. I have made a cheat sheet with some basic instructions and also the CLI commands that you're going to need to input in order for a successful installation. And I will also have a link to this in the description to make it easy to find so you can download it and keep all this handy for yourself. The first command that we're going to need to input is set gyro stage 2 filter type equals fast Kalman. Paste that in there and hit your enter key. You should get a response from the flight controller indicating that it has accepted that command. Once you have input the first command, type save, hit enter, and your flight controller is going to reboot. Once the flight controller has rebooted, we're going to reconnect and go back to our CLI. There's 2 more commands that we need to input, and we can input both of these together. Again, I'm just going to copy and paste them to make it quick and easy, and I'm going to hit enter. These 2 commands that we need are set gyro filter Q equals 400, and the flight controller accepted that command. The second is set gyro filter R equals 88, and again, as we can see, the flight controller accepted that command. Now, we do not want to change or manipulate the R filter. It is recommended by the devs to leave it at this value of 88. However, in order to get crispier, snappier performance from your aircraft, you can increase the Q value. And by increasing this number, you are reducing the amount of filtering that the fast Coleman is performing. Less filtering equals faster, snappier performance. And this is a number that you can play around with. But I am going to recommend that if this is the first time you've done this installation, don't play with any of these numbers and just fly it. I promise you will be blown away by the performance. Anyway, since I've been on that tangent, let's get on topic again. I've input the commands for both of my filters. I'm going to type save, hit enter, and once again the flight controller is going to reboot. Now, that's it. We're done with the main configuration of Butterflight. We're ready to move forward. And what's totally awesome is my CPU load here is at 29%. I am in a very comfortable area. Something that's worth mentioning is the Butterflight devs do not recommend copying and pasting differential dumps. They recommend setting up everything from scratch again. So when you do this Butterflight installation, even if it's an upgrade, it does not take very long to reconfigure the aircraft. But again, it is recommended that you do all of this from scratch. All right, anyway, we're on the PID tuning page. Set all your PIDs to your preference as normal. Most of these micros, you're going to have a relatively high P gain. And, you know, this is debatable now because back in the past, we would have these P gains incredibly high, even on these small aircrafts. But now with the fast Coleman, I think you're going to find you're going to be able to have these filters much lower. Again, this is personal preference. Set this to how you like it. These are just the defaults that are provided from Newbie Drone themselves when they develop this firmware. What I do really recommend changing here is set your D gains to 18 and 20. There is absolutely no reason to have them that high. So 18 and 20, this is really about the maximum that I recommend. If your motors are getting hot, lower these numbers. Maybe try 12 and 15 or 12 and 14, something like that. And you should be pretty good there. But really, if you're flying and you have hot motors, come back here, look at your D gains and lower those numbers. Set your RC rates to your preference. I like to set these to how my other aircraft are to make them all the same. And I can just plug in my numbers here based on my preference. And on these little buggers, to keep them a little bit more controllable, I recommend setting a little bit of expo in here. And my preference is about a 0.40 on the expo. Again, this is personal preference. Set this to wherever you're comfortable flying. In some cases, if you're running hot motors and you're a new pilot, maybe you're running the golds or the unicorns, you might want to give yourself a little throttle expo, but again, totally personal preference. One other change that I would recommend here is setting your anti-gravity to at least 5. We don't need to get into all that and why. It'll help a little. That's it here on our PID tuning page. I'm going to hit save. Now that we're saved, I'm going to shoot over to the receiver tab. Everything here should be pre-configured. As long as you've installed the right firmware binary, your channel map should be correct. They've already predefined an RSSI channel. You don't need to change that. I have no idea why, but the later versions of Butterflight, Betaflight are all setting the high stick threshold to 1900. I'm just going to go ahead and set that to 2000 because all of my endpoints are calibrated very precisely. I'm happy with everything here. There's nothing to do. I'm going to save. You're going to manually configure your flight modes. Pretty much here, I'm just going to add an arm range because everything else was configured as a feature. You may want a pre-arm. You may want to add a fail-safe range. Your preference, but whatever. We just got to make sure this thing arms for the most part. I've got my range. My switch is aux1. I know how this needs to be set. I'm going to hit save. We're going to shoot over to the OSD tab. This is all personal preference, how you decide to configure your OSD. But there is one thing here that I recommend doing, and I recommend doing this whether you're running Betaflight, Butterflight, regardless what it is, you should always update the font on your flight controller before you fly it for the first time. I personally like the large font, and I could just click on that and say upload font. But if I do that, as of right now, what's going to happen is when the aircraft boots, I'm still going to get the Betaflight logo in my OSD. And I don't want that because I'm running the buttery goodness. And that's what I want to see. So in order to fix that, we're going to click Open Font File. And I've previously downloaded my preferred font. I like the large. And I'm going to click on that. The configurator is going to load it. And now I'm going to upload the font. While that uploads, I'm going to show you where I got it from. And right here on the GitHub page to download the configurator, on the bottom of the page, you will see there is OSD fonts. That's all you need to know on that. I'm going to reconnect real quick and shoot back over to the OSD page. Now I'm going to have my font uploaded, and I can configure this to my personal preference. And that's it. It's really not too bad. Generally, that's how you're going to configure Butterflight to work with your AcroBee, but it's going to be very similar for other aircraft too. If you're flying a 5-inch and you want to try the buttery goodness, you can follow this guide as well. Even if you don't have a flight controller that's capable of the 32K PID loops, you can still take advantage of all these settings and the Coleman filter. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment. I will answer you back as best I can. Maybe if you're feeling adventurous, check me out on Instagram, Derek and his drone. I also have one of the best sponsors in the world, HotDog FPV. They make totally rad goggle straps and all kinds of great apparel. You can actually pick yourself up a Derek and his drone shirt if you want to, and I think you should because they're my favorite ones over there. Be sure to like this video and subscribe if you found it helpful. And that's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.